Hello, my darlings. It's Michaela. I am like always wearing a sweatshirt, and when it becomes warm, I will always be wearing a tank top. So I wanted to talk about self-talk. And so this is something that came to mind for me very recently as a good topic because when I work with people, women in weight loss, I am often challenging negative self-talk or even a negative or critical perception. Hi, Nikki. Hi, my dear. Of what's going on, what they're doing. And the thing that I'm so grateful that I've learned many, many years ago, which I kind of forgot about, which I am, hi, Megan. Hi, my dear. Getting more back into, which I will talk about, is how important it is to be reinforcing the crap out of ourselves all the freaking time. And how easy it is for negative bullshit reinforcement to creep in, and how damaging that is. So we're going to kind of say a lot of things tonight. And I hope that you hear things that are useful to you, and that that makes sense, and that potentially impact your own self-talk, and everything that trickles down as a result of that. So the big thing is that self-talk is conditioning. So it's not just like, oh, I should affirm that I'm like, beautiful and loved every day because that sounds like a good idea. They're not just thoughts. It is repetition of suggestion, which basically impacts our identity, our mood, our nervous system. And the longer we do it, hi, my dear. Hi, Marianne. The longer we do it, the more it feels like it's just us. Like it feels kind of permanent, like kind of not optional. And so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, that if you think things are a certain way, if you feel a certain way, you might want to examine your self-talk, especially if things are not feeling so bright. The whole thing is that with self-talk, or this repetition, this conditioning that we are giving to ourselves, is that the brain doesn't argue with what it hears, especially when it comes from you, especially when it's in your voice. And so if you tell yourself, like what a piece of shit you are, that you can't do anything right, that you're never going to blank, basically the brain is just this kind of happy hound dog and will be in agreement and go find proof of that for you. So, but oppositely, if you say, whatever is going on, if we just phrase it positively, if we spin it positively, I'm learning, I'm building strength, I can handle this, your brain just starts to scan for evidence of that instead. And so self-talk literally directs perception. And this is going to be hopefully really comprehensive and so, tightly organized. But this is so consequential for women. And so we have additional shit that is on top of what is kind of typically circling in the world regarding a more like negative or critical slant. And so we have more pressures regarding diet, body, comparison, pressure to be productive, youth-obsessed beauty standards. And this is all, my opinion, this is all like patriarchal bullshit, where a woman's worth is tied to appearance. And so if we don't challenge that, we have a very negative and narrow scope to live within. So one thing that happens with women is that we have these bullshit messages that are so constricting. So not enough, too much, I need to be smaller, I need to be quieter, I need to be prettier, I need to do more. Bullshit. And this double bind creates self-monitoring, which basically becomes inner criticism. So if nothing is right, then it's like everything is kind of wrong. But if you actively affirm yourself, you will passively, what do I want to say? If you don't actively affirm yourself, you will passively absorb these criticisms. Self-love is self-protection. A wonderful woman that I studied with for over a decade, Mama Gina, in her School of Womanly Arts. I owe so much to her and that community. And basically, there's so much emphasis on undoing the cultural conditioning of not enough, too much, this isn't right, comparison, criticism, no, thank you. And so in that community and through that education, I got that reinforcement. Self-love is self-protection in every respect. A lot of women think that the inner critic is discipline. I need to do well, I need to do more, I need to consider how other people are going to feel or perceive me, and it's not. It's internalized messaging, and really it's control. So being affirming to yourself is not arrogance, it's psychological armor. It will protect you. I'm also just gonna say, like, a little bit on the female front, that, like, when women speak kindly to themselves, we take up more space, we set boundaries, we stop apologizing for existing, we age without panic, we nourish our bodies versus punishing them. This is where self-talk becomes an act of reclaiming authority. And if for nothing else, take back your power regarding how you speak to yourself. Because once again, it enables us to either be feeling like we need to stay small and apologetic, and worry about how we're coming across or how we look. And that is a little petite prison. But when we go in the opposite direction, we actually feel a sense of freedom and control. Okay? So why the world skews negative. This is more just kind of like primal, primitive brain stuff. And so we're wired for a negativity bias because that keeps us safe. So the more we're kind of on the watch for danger, what could be wrong, the more we will stay safe. Our brain is wired for survival versus pleasure. And truthfully, like, the more positive things there are in the world, that will increase your pleasure, your well-being, but it won't necessarily keep you alive if there is danger present. So good to know. We're just set up to make sure that we stay safe so we don't die. So with that, it's like, so we're made to be alert, to be aware of what could be a potential threat. And our culture nowadays just kind of capitalizes on that, really. So, the news kind of profits from outrage, social media algorithms amplify drama, fear gets more clicks, comparison drives engagement. And so negativity just gets more attention. It spreads faster than calmness, than serenity. So if you're not intentional, your nervous system will live in a subtle threat mode. Thank you, no. And I hope you're someone that notices how they feel and that makes a point to step away from shit at the very least when you start to notice it taking a bit of a toll on you. I know I had to do that. I have a very hard time with the line regarding being informed and being enraged. It's like I'm used to being like willfully ignorant because being aware of current events would make me feel crazy, because there's so much madness that goes on, especially now. But because there's so much madness, especially now, I've felt that it's my responsibility to be aware and to take as much action as I can to help do whatever I can to change course. But anyway, but I know that I stepped away from some stuff. I stepped away from engaging as much because it was making me feel awful and super stressed. And one thing I figured out a couple presidencies ago was that I am not valuable. I am not valuable to anyone, including mostly myself, if I am a stressed out mess. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about joy at the end, but you feeling stressed isn't useful. So anyway, that's how our brain is wired to keep us alive. So we have to kind of override that, especially when it's like we are okay right now at this moment. Roof, heat, clothing, food, like we're okay. But when we're in this kind of, when we get a bit ground down from the world, if we are absorbing a lot of negativity from the world, that tends to show up as irritability, self-judgment, body dissatisfaction, impulse behaviors, and exhaustion. And so please, like, protect your peace, do things that are good for you, know your limits, and ultimately lean towards what feels good. And so a good thing to remember, myself included, you can't passively consume negativity and expect to feel peaceful. So protecting that is really important. But anyway, your self-talk determines everything. It affects your mood, it determines your posture, it affects or determines your energy, your confidence, your facial expression, your level of resilience in terms of what you can handle, your health even, risk-taking abilities, boundaries. And basically, it's kind of black or white, black and white. Whereas whatever we focus on grows. So if we want to feel good, if we want to do great things, if we want to do bigger things, bolder things, we need us on our side. We can't undermine our foundation and then expect ourselves to rise, or expect ourselves to shine, or expect ourselves to be able to continue to carry on if we're chipping away at our resolve or our self-confidence. That's crazy. One thing I used to do, I'll share. So 1,000,000 years ago, when I was predominantly a massage therapist, I used to work at this amazing massage practice called Body Sense in Providence in the Jewelry District. It was this urban oasis, legitimately. It was gorgeous. It was so artfully designed. 4 treatment rooms, super high ceilings. Everything was intentional, beautiful, private steam showers, plants that just draped over the walls, art and antiques throughout, orchids, exotic plants. It was absolutely spectacular. Anyway, it was this perfect situation of being independent, kind of within a collective. So there would be clients of the individual, and there would be people that would just come to the business to schedule an appointment. So there was an element of collaboration as well as self-reliance. And so when things were slow, people would complain. They would complain about things being slow, and they would kind of future pace, I don't know if that's the correct term, oh my God, like they would kind of go like, subtly, like catastrophic to a degree. And I would just shut that shit down. Like I would tell people, like, not around me. Like I can't afford to think like that because I don't want to negatively impact my income. Like I want to be busy and prosperous. So I'm not going to entertain those thoughts because more than likely you will bring that into existence. So I want to brag and say, like, that was the smartest thing to do. Like to be literally militant. I was like literally militant about the thoughts that the thoughts that I thought, in terms of what I was repeating, what I was conditioning myself with, because it becomes your reality. And so anyway, it's something that's hugely consequential. And I hope you put the weight on it that it really deserves. Okay. Hi, my dear. Okay. And so basically, self-talk influences, yes, all of these things. What do I want to say? It affects cortisol levels. It affects motivation. It affects follow through. It affects how attractive and open you appear. It attracts what opportunities you find or you pursue. And it attracts the relationships that you either draw in or that you tolerate. This is something that I am actually really excited to kind of reinforce, which is like why like positive self-talks makes healthy behaviors easier. And this is something I feel like I have encountered with myself, and I experience it a lot with fat burners, which is essentially like when people get down on themselves, that is just like the worst way to go, because talking shitty to ourselves makes us feel shitty, makes us do shitty. So it's like, if you don't want to do that, like as fast as possible, like get away from that critical thinking, that critical bent. Because basically it's like, if you care about yourself, if you like yourself, if you love yourself, like you will be good to yourself. We are so logical. I can't get over how true that is, like how much I experience that as someone that works with the body. So that started in my awareness with massage therapy, which is, it's like, there's no making shit up. It's like something is tight, or it is loose, or it is weak, or it is taut. And so it's like, you can't lie. Like you can't make this shit up. And so at any rate, kind of seeing that, and then seeing, what was I going to say? I guess stuff with kettlebells, that's all about form, which is just like black and white. Once again, it's like we're either doing this properly or we're not. We're either like potentially going to hurt ourselves or we're not. And then like fat burning for frickin' sure. But then even just like emotional well-being, it's like if you tell yourself terrible things, like it's so much easier for you to do terrible things. But if you tell yourself wonderful things, it's so logical for you to do great things for your body. It's like we can't act in opposition to ourselves. Like we don't. And so if something is going on that doesn't make sense, it makes sense somewhere. So if there is something going on that isn't what you desire, then we just need to kind of reprogram ourselves at the very least to start to like help us to feel different, to perceive ourselves differently, to be able to do things more easily. And the thing that's cool about this is that basically this makes supportive behaviors easy. When we actually think about how we will feel, how we want to feel, I'm a big proponent or I'm a big proponent of not having regrets. So it's like, you want to drink a bunch of wine, Michaela, and eat super late at night? Like, yes. We do that if we do not have regrets. But if we are, and we think about that for a moment, it's so much easier to decide to not do something that we know is going to feel shitty. And the more we reinforce how much we love ourselves, how important we are, how special we are, how much what we want coming to be matters, that stuff really makes a big impact. So when you respect yourself, this is like my weight loss platform. So I really believe like weight loss can be an act of self-love. How it's done best is as an act of self-love. And so when we are doing things that ultimately feel good, both in the moment and absolutely after the fact, and when we're continuing to put our attention on things that help us to have more and more of what we want, then it's like there is no negative. Like there's no deprivation, there's no restriction, how we do things in fat burning. And then it's like we're just getting benefit. Like we're just having like a positive result. So we create this win-win situation. So instead of this punitive, like, let me just hold my breath until I lose 20 pounds, madness, let me work out, multiple times a day in the gym. It's like we're doing things because they both feel good now and because they feel good later, because we love ourselves. And so it's not to be good or because doing certain things make us good, which is just retarded. You are good, and then you do things that are good for you because you are good. And then you just have like this harmonious, self-reinforcing life. And we don't abandon ship because we're really a terrible person, and then we get back on the wagon and punish ourselves because we've been bad. That is madness, and that will just keep you swinging from extremes and wasting so much energy while often staying in the same spot. Very familiar, not a fan. Weight loss does not have to be that way. So additionally, when you respect yourself, when you love yourself, you eat in a way that feels good, that gives you energy. You go to bed at an earlier hour. You speak up when something isn't right for you. You set boundaries. So when we're always thinking about how we feel, when we're always reinforcing that we matter, that we are important, that we are incredible, that we're the fucking rock star, that this world has been waiting for, when we reinforce this shit, it's just so much easier to keep doing stuff that feels good. And when your self-talk is negative, that's when it's just easy to like overeat. I never follow through. I'm never going to be able to do this. I keep letting myself down. And the thing that I want to say is, we think like the behavior reinforces the self-talk, but it's really the opposite. So it's like you have to, in this respect, you have to put the cart in front of the horse. You're not there yet, and that doesn't matter. Like wherever you are in your positive self-talk journey, if it's not ironclad, you're in good company. But we need to start with the positive self-talk when we might not believe it, when we might not feel like a fucking rock star, while we might not feel like this, goddess in flesh. We have to reinforce that stuff because that's how we get to it. It doesn't go the other way. And the crazy thing is, even if you do have what the outside world sees as, successful, beautiful, smart, like accomplished, complete, whatever, and you don't, like you still won't. And you will do things that kind of like sabotage that in some capacity. So it's the thinking first, and then we continue to act in ways that reinforce that thinking, that reflect that thinking. But the coolest thing is that you can just start to think this way now, and change everything for the better, which is so amazing. So when we reinforce bullshit, that's when we overeat, we skip workouts, we stay in draining relationships. I know of what I speak. We avoid hard conversations. I know of what I speak. We numb out for frickin' sure, because we're not feeling worthy. We're not holding ourselves to a higher standard. We're not kind of insisting on a certain level of self-esteem. We're not creating that with our words. So it's really easy to just keep kind of minimizing our needs, our voice, our comfort. It's a terrible down spiral. So negative self-talk fuels self-sabotage, but kind self-talk fuels self-leadership. And that's something that I think is also really helpful to be reminded of, which is, regardless of how you feel about yourself, like no one is doing shit perfectly all the time. So the better we do talk to ourselves, which impacts how we feel about ourselves, then it's like whatever we do has a positive spin. Like whatever is imperfect is still pretty fucking amazing. And so this doesn't mean that we're arrogant or delusional, but it means that we are kind, and that we are compassionate, and that we are loving, and that we are playful, and that we are light with ourselves, and therefore actually the rest of the world, because that always starts here. That's for sure. You want to be better to other people, it's like be better to yourself, no question. The identity piece, this is huge. I try to do this. I've been trying to do this lately, which is we don't rise to our goals, we fall to our identity. And so if our identity is, I have terrible luck, I'm not good at anything, like you'll unconsciously preserve that. Or if our identity becomes like, I'm someone who shows up for herself, I do hard things, I'm able to I'm bold, I'm adventurous, I can do anything, everything shifts. And so self-talk is really how our identity is formed. And the thing about that is, I think that we all got messages growing up which formed our identity to whatever point we became conscious that we might be able to rewire that, reword our messages and change it. Or maybe experiences have rewired that by, again, changing our inner narrative. But that's how we change what we think about ourselves, how we see ourselves is our self-talk. So I'm going to say one little, how positive self-talk has happened the best for me. And maybe this is my story. So I'll cry. So I feel like my self-esteem was low, horribly low, growing up low, told terrible things. And, it's everything was fine, meals and, warm, safe beds and safety and all this other stuff. But terrible talk and so critical, so much criticism. And so I just internalized that. And so then my life was reinforcing bullshit until I went to a course for women and spent 10 years in that community. And basically what I learned was to speak differently to myself. And so what I did was I just committed to drowning out my negative self-talk with positive affirmations. So like a crazy person, I would tell myself, you know, I'm so important, I'm so special, I'm so beautiful, I do great things, you know, I can have whatever I want, I have a massive online empire, I make millions of dollars every day, helping millions of people in every way. And basically, like, I would just say this shit. And if I wasn't talking about me, I was saying thank you. This is all super useful. Thank you for, if you want to feel better, be in a state of gratitude. Thank you for houses. Thank you for plants. Thank you for windows. Thank you for the sky. Thank you for air. Thank you for televisions. Thank you for electricity. Thank you for sewage. Thank you for snow. Thank you for the weather. And you can just keep going on. So anyway, that's how I lived for a period of years. And the truth is, the more I paid attention to my pleasure, the more like I just felt very lucky, very fortunate, lots of yes in the world. The more I focused on my pleasure and said yes to things that felt good, life was like a magic carpet ride, like no fucking joke. And what's so exciting about that is that because I have lived that, like I know it's possible. It is a discipline, it takes effort and consciousness, but it is totally fucking possible. Anyway, hi Carly. Hey my dear. So anyway, I went from that for a million years to having that self-talk be eroded by the company I was keeping. And because I had done it for so long, it was my identity. I didn't know that it was self-imposed. I didn't know that it was consequential for me to keep this shit up. And when I stopped keeping it up and then started internalizing some other messages that were around me, I had this like slow fall from grace that was full of stress and ended in self-doubt and low self-esteem and kind of like a flatter, more depressed existence with shittier luck, less like more crap happening. So anyway, it's not honestly until like the more recent past that I've just had this like reawakening that it was like, wow, right. That stuff was so important and shaped my world. And then like the negative self-talk, just like the talk of the world, like crappy partner at a point. And it was like realizing that I am buying into this bullshit. I am reinforcing, you know, fears, anxieties, self-doubt, and feeling that, living that, looking that, like, no, thank you. And I like, anyway, so I am working myself back, which is like effort, consciousness, focus, and so much, like it's so worth it. Anyway, this is my point, which is that your self-talk affects everything. And so it's not trivial. It's not, you know, nice to like do while you're having a pedicure, like once a month. It's really, it's self-protection. It is self-preservation, depending on what's happening. And it is something that will impact your life, like in every way. So if you want to feel better, look better, I like 100%. If you're telling yourself how like ugly you are, how fat you are, how old you look, like fuck that shit. It's like, we're just gonna get it. Or we could say the opposite. We could say how stunning we are, how sexy we are. Oh my God, I look fucking phenomenal. Like, if we do that, we get more of what we actually want. And then this like identity piece, if we do it long enough, it becomes how we see ourselves, and it completely impacts how we see the world, and it undeniably impacts how the world sees us and what we draw in from it. So if you want to feel better about yourself, tell yourself better things. If you want to have behaviors that are supportive, be easier, tell yourself amazing things. If you want to do things that are like harder or scary or outside of your comfort zone, tell yourself that you do those things versus the opposite. And I think that the craziest and most logical thing is that we're telling ourselves shit all the time anyway. So it's like we could just tell ourselves something different that will give us more of what we want. It's crazy to reinforce what we don't want. It is utterly insane to repeat and focus on what we don't want. And it is so logical to focus on what we do. So that's kind of it. One other little point in my life, I did this thing that was so fucking bold and amazing. I was feeling kind of lackluster, down in the mouth. And at the time, there was this thing happening on social media called 100 Days of Happy. And it was like people would post like, a photo of a kitten, like what makes you happy? A sunrise. And I just thought that sounded so fucking dry. And so it was like, I know that outrageous shit makes me feel alive, and that makes me feel happy. So I took myself through this self-directed exercise called 100 Days of Outrageousness. And basically, like every day I did something like kind of a little crazy, like to me, like bold for me. Like I wore a tiara to Starbucks one day, and a woman that I was friendly with was like, oh, I'll put that on. Like, that's no big deal. So it was my comfort zone, but I did like a load of crazy shit. Maybe I'll attach the video underneath here. I did a presentation about it. But anyway, my point is that in that process, it was like I knew what was outrageous. Like if it made me sweat a little bit and made me kind of excited, it's like, this is absolutely outrageous. Like one of the like jewels in my crown was dressing up like I was in the movie Chicago. So like black and tassels and nylons and little boots. And I danced on the India Point Park overpass, like over the highway to all that jazz, like on a cloudy Tuesday afternoon in November. And it was like fucking nuts, but like so fun and so ridiculous. Anyway, the thing that I learned through that process was that basically like the meaning of life is joy. And so in that time, it was so much easier to continue to say yes to things that felt good and to say no to things that didn't feel good. And so I think that sometimes we believe that we're like obligated to do shit that's unpleasant. It's one thing to do something hard that has a payoff. It's nuts to do shit that's just kind of like unpleasant, like regularly. The meaning of life is joy. And so there is everything valuable about stuff that's fun, that makes you feel good, that lights you up. Yes. So anyway, positive self-talk is definitely something that amplifies our spirit, our energy, our life force, our presence in the world, like who we are, what we bring to it, what we're capable of. And so please don't undermine you. That's it. Okay? I hope that was amazing. I'm so happy to be kind of like getting back into this space. I feel like when I first started with fat burning, this is where I was. Like I had just started actually with that amazing course like 13 years ago, which is all about like pleasure, being lit up, being like turned on, being focused on like shit that just like feels so fucking delightful, being truthful, desiring things, following your destiny. And I feel like that's how actually fat burning, like all the wording from the beginning was around that stuff. I would put something in it called love bites, and they were these little like word baths, like you are beautiful, you are fantastic, you are mesmerizing, you are elevated, you are elegant. And anyway, I feel like I'm like coming back to that. So that is it. So if you or someone you love wants to lose weight in a way that feels good while you feel good, please consider Fat Burning Pro. When the body is in a state of using its own fat for energy, which is how we are designed, it feels comfortable. Weight loss is easy, faster. It supports our hormones. It supports our metabolic health. It helps to stave off disease. It's amazing. It slows aging. It increases longevity. It is one-stop shopping in how we are designed. It will help offset negative impact from bullshit processed foods, from chemicals, from alcohol, from drugs. It is a therapeutic and healing state. Not a doctor, not a scientist, but both the research that I have taken in over these last 13 years, as well as just what I've seen from clients and myself, supports that. Getting off of medication, looking younger, sleeping better, more energy, so many crazy things. Anyway, should you be interested in an approach and a method that just kind of taps into your natural wiring as well as reinforces the crap out of you as to what a magical human being you are and how much you deserve to have each and everything that you desire, please consider Fat Burning Pro. I'll attach a sugar quiz underneath this to see what fuel you're using. If you feel stuck, if you're struggling, if you're trying hard. And please consider an environment that cultivates your self-esteem and your sense of worth while you are doing something that is potentially unfamiliar. Period. Okay, that's it. I hope that was amazing. Please be in touch for any reason. Love to you. Hope this was beyond delightful. And that is it. Until next time.